It's 1998, and one of America's most beloved family sitcoms is about to come to a shocking end. Not because of low ratings, not because the story was over, but because of a behind-the-scenes explosion that would change everything. What you're about to hear will completely change how you see Family Matters forever. For almost a decade, the Winslow family welcomed millions of viewers into their Chicago home every week. We laughed at Steve Urkel's clumsy antics. We cheered when he got the girl, and we felt like part of the family. But what was happening behind the cameras was far from the warm, loving atmosphere we saw on screen. There was tension, there were fights, and there was one particular moment that would ultimately lead to the show's shocking cancellation. Today, we're diving deep into the real story behind Family Matters' sudden end. And trust me, it's nothing like what you'd expect. This isn't just about a TV show ending. This is about how a single confrontation between two actors would destroy one of television's most successful sitcoms. Let's start from the beginning. Family Matters premiered in September 1989 as a spin-off of Perfect Strangers. The show was supposed to focus on the Winslow family, Carl, a Chicago police officer, his wife Harriet, and their three children Eddie, Laura, and Judy. It was meant to be a wholesome family comedy that showcased African-American life in a positive way. And for the first few episodes, that's exactly what it was. But then something happened that nobody saw coming. In the middle of the first season, the writers introduced a character who was supposed to appear in just one episode. His name was Steve Urkel, played by a young actor named Jaleel White. Steve was this nerdy, suspenders-wearing, glasses-sporting kid with a nasally voice and a catchphrase that would become legendary. "Did I do that?" The audience went on, but the cast tried to make it work. They were professionals after all, and the show was successful. Everyone was making good money, and Family Matters had become a cultural phenomenon. It was part of ABC's legendary TGIF lineup alongside shows like Full House and Boy Meets World. Kids across America were rushing home on Friday nights to watch their favorite shows, and Family Matters was consistently one of the most popular. As the years went by, though, the behind-the-scenes tension got worse. Jaleel White, who had been a child when he started on the show, was growing up, and with that growth came confidence. Some might say too much confidence. He began to have opinions about storylines, about his character development, and about what should and shouldn't happen on the show. According to Jo Marie Payton, things came to a head during the show's later seasons. The network had standards and practices guidelines that all shows had to follow, especially family-friendly shows that aired in prime time. These guidelines existed to make sure content was appropriate for the audience, and they were taken very seriously. But Jaleel White, now the undisputed star of the show, apparently disagreed with some of these guidelines. Jo Marie Payton later revealed that there was a specific incident where White wanted to do something that might not meet the network's standards. When Payton, as one of the senior cast members and a producer on the show, tried to explain why they needed to follow the network's rules, White didn't take it well. What happened next shocked everyone on set. According to Payton, Jaleel White became furious. She described how he started kicking and screaming during rehearsal. But it got even worse than that. Payton claimed that White actually wanted to physically fight her right there on set. Can you imagine? Here was America's favorite nerd, the character Wabiu Boots Satsiud, who represented everything innocent and wholesome about 1990s family television, and the actor playing him was allegedly trying to start a physical confrontation with his TV mom. The irony was almost too much to believe. The situation got so intense that other cast members had to step in. Darius McCrary, who played Eddie Winslow, actually had to separate the two actors to prevent things from escalating further. Think about that for a moment. The son had to break up a fight between his TV parents. It was like a bizarre, real-life episode of the show, except there was nothing funny about it. This incident wasn't just a momentary flare-up that everyone could laugh about later. It was the breaking point in a relationship that had been deteriorating for years. Jo Marie Payton, who had been with the show since day one and had helped make it the success it became, made a decision that would shock fans and change the show forever. After that confrontation, Peyton appeared in only one more episode of Family Matters. It was a Christmas special that brought back several characters from the show's earlier days, almost like a farewell to the original spirit of the program. After that, she was done. The heart and soul of the Winslow family walked away from the show that had made her famous. The producers had to scramble to find a replacement. They brought in actress Judy Ann Elder to take over the role of Harriet Winslow for the remainder of the final season. Elder did her best, but it wasn't the same. The chemistry that had made the Winslow family feel real and authentic was gone. You might think that losing one cast member, even an important one, wouldn't be enough to kill an entire show. After all, Family Matters still had Steve Urkel, the character everyone loved. But the behind-the-scenes drama had damaged more than just Jo Marie Peyton's relationship with the show. The incident revealed deeper problems with how the show was being run and how the cast was working together. When your lead actors can't be in the same room without nearly coming to blows, it creates an atmosphere that makes it nearly impossible to create good television. The magic that had made Family Matters special for so many years was dying. Meanwhile, the show's ratings were starting to slip. Part of this was natural. After 9 seasons, even the most popular shows tend to lose some of their audience. But the loss of Jo Marie Peyton, combined with the general feeling that the show had moved too far away from its original concept, contributed to the decline. CBS, which had picked up the show after ABC canceled it, was watching the numbers closely. They had hoped that bringing Family Matters to their network would give them a hit, but the drama behind the scenes and the declining ratings made them reconsider. The final season of Family Matters aired in 1997 to 1998, and it felt different from the beginning. The show that had once been about a loving family dealing with everyday problems had become almost entirely focused on Steve Urkel's increasingly outrageous adventures. The heart of the show, the family dynamic that had originally made it successful, was missing. The series' final, it was a 2-part episode called Lost in Space, where Steve Urkel literally goes to space and becomes a national hero. It was a fitting end in some ways, showing just how far the character had come from his humble beginnings as a 1-episode guest star. But it also highlighted how far the show had strayed from its original premise. When the finale aired on July 17, 1998, it marked the end of an era. Family Matters had run for 215 episodes over 9 seasons, making it one of the longest-running sitcoms with a predominantly African-American cast. It had been a cultural touchstone for millions of viewers and had launched Jaleel White to stardom. But the way it ended left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. This wasn't a show that concluded because its story was finished, or because it had run its natural course. This was a show that ended because the people making it couldn't work together anymore. Years later, the cast members would try to make peace with what had happened. Some defended Jaleel White, saying that he was young and under a lot of pressure as the star of a major television show. Others supported Jo Marie Peyton, understanding why she felt she had no choice but to leave. Jaleel White himself has generally tried to stay out of the public discussion about the behind-the-scenes drama. In interviews over the years, he's focused on the positive aspects of his time on Family Matters and has expressed gratitude for the opportunity the show gave him. But the shadow of that final confrontation has never completely gone away. Jo Marie Peyton, for her part, has been more open about what happened. She's made it clear that while she has no regrets about leaving the show, she wishes things could have been handled differently. She's also clarified that despite the conflict, she doesn't hold personal animosity toward her former co-stars. The story of Family Matters' end is really a story about power, ego, and what happens when success changes people. Jaleel White went from being a child actor making a guest appearance to being the star of one of television's biggest hits. That kind of sudden fame and responsibility can be overwhelming, especially for someone so young. At the same time, Jo Marie Payton had to watch as the show she had helped build from the ground up slowly shifted away from her and toward a character who was originally supposed to appear in just one episode. That had to be incredibly frustrating for an experienced actress who had put her heart into the role. The tragedy is that both actors were talented people who deserved success. The show worked best when it balanced Steve Urkel's comedy with the genuine warmth of the Winslow family. When that balance was lost, everything fell apart. But the influence of Family Matters shouldn't be underestimated, despite how it ended. The show broke barriers and opened doors for other African American sitcoms. It proved that audiences were hungry for diverse programming, and it showed that family comedy could be both funny and meaningful. Steve Urkel became an iconic character who is still referenced in popular culture today. The show's catchphrases entered the American vocabulary, and its influence can be seen in countless other programs that followed. However, the behind-the-scenes drama that led to the show's end also serves as a cautionary tale for the television industry. It shows what can happen when egos get out of control and when the human element of making television is forgotten in favor of ratings and profits. The incident that allegedly took place between Jo Marie Payton and Jaleel White might seem like ancient history now, but it's actually a perfect example of workplace dynamics that still exist in Hollywood today. When you have a hit show, everyone wants to be the star. Everyone wants more control. And sometimes those competing interests clash in destructive ways. What makes this story even more interesting is how different the public perception was from the private reality. To viewers at home, Family Matters looked like a happy, functional family, both on screen and off. The idea that the actors playing these beloved characters were having serious conflicts would have been shocking to fans at the time. This disconnect between public image and private reality is something we see in Hollywood over and over again. Shows that seem like they must be fun to make are often plagued by drama, while productions that look difficult from the outside sometimes have the most harmonious casts. The Family Matters situation was also complicated by the fact that it involved actors of different ages and experience levels. Jo Marie Payton was an established actress who had been working in television for years before Family Matters started. Jaleel White was essentially a child when he joined the show and grew up in the spotlight. These kinds of generational and experience gaps can create natural tensions on any production, but they become more problematic when success and money are involved. Everyone handles fame differently, and what might have been minor personality conflicts in a less successful show became major problems when Family Matters became a hit. Looking back now, it's clear that the show's producers could have handled the situation better. When tensions between cast members reach the point where physical confrontation is possible, that's a sign that serious intervention is needed. Better communication, clearer boundaries, and perhaps some professional mediation might have saved the show. But hindsight is always perfect, and the reality is that television production is a high-pressure environment where problems often aren't addressed until they become crises. By the time the confrontation between Payton and White occurred, the underlying issues had probably been festering for years. The end of Family Matters also marked the end of an era for family-friendly television. The show had been part of ABC's TGIF lineup, which represented a time when families could watch television together without worrying about inappropriate content. When Family Matters ended, it took with it a piece of that innocent, wholesome entertainment that seems harder to find today. In many ways, the story of Family Matters is the story of how television has changed over the past few decades. The show represented a time when sitcoms could run for nearly a decade, when characters could become cultural icons, and when television still had the power to bring families together around the TV set every week. But it also showed how the business of television can sometimes destroy the very thing that makes a show special in the first place. The focus on ratings, profits, and star power can overshadow the human relationships that are essential to creating good television. Today, with so many different viewing options and shorter attention spans, it's rare for any show to have the kind of cultural impact that Family Matters had in its heyday. The idea of a character like Steve Urkel becoming a household name seems almost impossible in our fragmented media landscape. Yet the lessons from Family Matters' rise and fall are still relevant. The show succeeded because it found a way to be both funny and heartfelt, because it created characters that audiences cared about, and because it tapped into something universal about family life. It failed ultimately, because the people making it lost sight of what made it special, and let personal conflicts destroy their professional relationships. The infamous scene that allegedly took Family Matters off the air wasn't actually shown on television. It happened behind the cameras, in a moment when two people who should have been working together let their differences explode into something destructive. The real tragedy is that it didn't have to end that way. With better communication, more mature handling of conflicts, and a focus on what was best for the show rather than individual egos, Family Matters could have continued for years longer. The Winslow family could have remained on television. Steve Urkel could have kept making us laugh, and millions of viewers could have continued to enjoy their Friday night tradition. Instead, we're left with a cautionary tale about what happens when success breeds conflict instead of cooperation. The show that taught us about the importance of family ultimately fell apart because the people making it couldn't act like one. But despite how it ended, Family Matters deserves to be remembered for what it achieved during its 9-season run. It was groundbreaking television that paved the way for other shows. It created one of the most memorable characters in sitcom history, and it brought joy to millions of viewers around the world. The behind-the-scenes drama that ended the show is just one part of its story, but it's an important part because it reminds us that the television shows we love are made by real people, with real conflicts and real emotions. Sometimes those emotions get the better of everyone involved, and something beautiful gets destroyed in the process. So the next time you watch an old episode of Family Matters, remember that behind Steve Urkel's famous "Did I Do That?" and the Winslow family's warm interactions, there was a complex web of relationships, ambitions, and conflicts that ultimately led to one of television's most unexpected endings. If this story shocked you as much as it shocked me when I first learned about it, make sure to hit that like button to let me know. And if you want to hear more behind-the-scenes stories from your favorite TV shows, don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Trust me, there are so many more shocking stories from Hollywood that you probably never knew about, and I'm going to keep bringing them to you right here on this channel. What other classic TV shows do you think had drama behind the scenes that we never knew about? Let me know in the comments below.